Hi, Emily. Hi. We will
Hi,
start.
Sophia. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great.
Hi
Perfect.
everyone.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Great. So we are so excited that you can join us. Yeah, we decided to start our Zoom a little bit earlier. So our event starts at 7. So
Okay,
we will be waiting for participants.
sounds good.
So should I start with the introduction of Robert at first? He will be the first speaker today.
I think that's the plan.
Okay. And then, okay, perfect. Yeah, great.
So where are you now,
I'm in
Sophia?
Belarus. It is in Russia, and my colleague Dennis, say yes.
Yeah, I'm from Kazan. I'm from Russia too. I'm from Kazan now.
Yes, he's
Okay.
in Kazan.
It looks like you're in San Francisco.
It's my favorite city now. The most beautiful city I've ever seen.
And you are in Austin now?
I am in Austin. And you knew Robert previously, right? Did you study in Austin, Sophia, or?
No, actually, we had a Russian business leaders program this year,
Got
and
it.
that is why, yes, we knew not Robert, but we was acquainted with Bruce at first, and he
Okay,
gave us the contact of Robert.
got it. Great. And the participants who are coming today, these are high school students?
Both high school students and bachelor students as well.
Okay.
And sometimes parents. Parents are also coming.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, from time to time. Yeah.
Great.
Coming.
Hello, Sophia.
Hi, Robert. Hi, how are you?
Hey, great. This worked.
Yeah,
No problem.
perfect. And we can hear you. Yeah, nice.
Let me
Just
see if anybody.
yes,
Yeah, Emily's here too. Yeah.
yeah, perfect. We need to wait for 1 or 2
Sure.
minutes because we would like to start at 7. So
Sure.
just wait a little.
And you'll start by telling everybody the housekeeping details and that sort of thing.
Yeah. At first, I will introduce you, and
Okay.
then I will give you your presentation, or I can give you the rights of organizer, and you can use.
No. That's fine.
Okay.
That's a great idea. You do it. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Yes. Uh, mhm. Okay, so just, yeah, they still going. 1 more minute and we will start. Okay. Mhm. Okay, great. So I believe we can start. And the participants will come. So guys, today I'm so excited to have such an amazing speakers. So we were so lucky to have a great speakers today. First of all, I would like to introduce Robert Watkins. He's Assistant Director for Credentials at the University of Texas at Austin. And I would like to remind you that University of Texas at Austin is one of the best and the most famous university in the world, not only in the United States. So when you put the name of the University of Texas at Austin in your Google search, you will find that it has absolutely fantastic position in QS World University ranking, in the higher educational ranking, and in all rankings possible. But our speakers are even more famous. Robert Watkins is actually a member of American Association of Collegiate Registrars and Admission Officers. He is a member of Association of International Educators and European Association for International Education. He knows everything about international students, about admission processes, and you are lucky to ask him questions about international education because he knows all the secrets and all life hacks, how to be the best from the best and how to be enrolled in the top universities of the United States. But I believe that I need to stop talking and I need to start asking questions of Robert Watkins, and I will share his presentation and you will see it on your screen. So let's start. So, dear colleagues, dear friends, have you seen my screen? Can you see it?
Yes, you
Yes?
can
Can
see.
see it, yes.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Yes, I will start this slide. Yeah, it's a presentation. Oh, yeah, we can start.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sophia, so much for first inviting and kind words as well. I've only got a few slides there that I will go to, although I will add to more than what's on the slide. and then my last slide sends it over to our other colleague from UT Austin, Emily Spurgeon, who will concentrate on an area I think that's very important to you, essay writing, some other things. She's one of our faculty at the English language program here at UT Austin. But I'll turn this over to Emily a little bit later. And of course, we'll both be ready for questions at the end that you and the audience may have. And we'll provide the appropriate answers depending on what the content of the question is. So let's get started, shall we? I've entitled this Undergraduate Admission to the University of Texas at Austin because Sophia mentioned in the invitation that I believe most of you participating are in fact high school students or planning to go to university. I will mention graduate as well, but I'm mainly going to focus on undergraduate admission. First of all, the office in which I work is called Graduate and International Admissions Center. And what we do is that, as you can see there, we process all graduate applications. That is, people wanting to enter a master's program or a doctoral program, PhD program, because they already have a degree from their first degree from their country. We do all of those, both domestic, US, and international. We also process all of the undergraduate international applications. That is, those students like yourselves, I believe, that are first year degree students wanting to enter into a university degree program. Also, some undergraduate students that are at other colleges who may decide to transfer to come to UT Austin, leaving the college where they are and coming to join us at a second year level or third year level, something along those lines. We process those as well. Finally, what we do not admit the graduate applicants, those that want that master's or PhD. We simply pull the paper together, calculate grade averages, list test scores, and then we send all of that out to the graduate program and they make the decision. However, as you see there at the bottom, on the undergraduate internationals, we do decide those students. So we look at those students. In a moment, I'm going to show you what it is that we're looking at, but we make the decision on whether or not to admit that individual who is an undergraduate. All right, let's take a look at the next one, shall we? Next slide. Sophie, can we move? Yeah, the next slide there, number 3. There
Yes.
we go. Perfect. Thank you. We receive approximately 14,000 international applications. That's not even counting the US applications. 14,000 international applications each year. Of those, about 5,000 are undergraduate international applications per year. And so from those 5,000, we're going to admit maybe about 300 first-year students, known as freshmen over here, and approximately 150 that are coming from other colleges at the undergraduate level. That number can fluctuate year to year, but generally speaking, it remains constant. Sometimes it drops a little, and it certainly doesn't increase beyond that because two reasons. UT Austin is a very highly selective institution. That means nowhere near a majority of the applicants are going to be admitted. There are a number of institutions around the country that are that way as well, as you probably know, Stanford, obviously Harvard, UCLA, and a bunch of others. We're in that same category where we admit far fewer than apply to us. So those are the numbers that we generally do each year. Let's look at the next one, shall we? Next, yeah, perfect. Now, what would we require? What are we looking for when we make these admission decisions? Well, we're looking, first of all, that the high school grades that the individual has achieved during their high school studies. And the leaving certificate, the graduation certificate, the maturity certificate, whatever it may be called, and it's called different things, obviously, in different countries. But whatever that credential is that enables that student to enter university in their country, that's what we're looking for. And now, I'll also say that obviously with advanced deadlines. Now, what that means is that you have to get all your papers in and test scores in well before you would start at the university if admitted. So, for example, if you're applying for fall of 2024, let's say next fall, you need to have all your documents in by February 1st of 2024. So that's pretty far in advance. Now, what that means is that you may not have graduated high school yet. You may be in your final year. That's okay. We will take your grades up to that point. If you are admitted and if you decide to come to the university, then we would require that after you get here, you give us the leaving certificate to show that you graduated from your high school, your upper secondary school. Test scores. We have two that we require. There are either one we accept for English proficiency, and that is the TOEFL, Test of English as a Foreign Language, or the IELTS, the International English Language Testing System, which is basically a British product. TOEFL, of course, comes from the United States. At the present time, SAT is optional. We have always used the SAT right up until the pandemic and shut down in 2020. After that, once we started up again with our admission procedures, we made SAT optional. I suspect that in future, and I mean the relatively near future, we are probably going to require SAT once again. At the graduate level, GRE is optional in some disciplines, but it may be reinstituted by most all of them in the near future as well. Finally, depending on what the applicant wants to study, what they want to major in, their concentration, that's going to be important because some of those majors are highly selective and much more competitive to get into. For example, my degrees are in history. It's not very competitive to get into history even today. However, if you want computer science, or if you want engineering, or if you want business, those are much more difficult. Far fewer students are accepted into those majors than would be the case with, say, history or sociology or psychology, etc. So that's going to be important during the selection process as well. Let's go to the next slide if we can. Yes. So overall grades, that is grades in all of your courses, that's going to be important. And generally speaking, we're going to require a higher B plus, as we call it over here, or even higher. In Russian grading, that would probably be a 4 on the numerical 5-point scale, where 4 is good, probably a 4.5 or something like that on all of your courses. Now, grades in certain key courses are important depending on what the individual is applying for, what major they want to study, what subject they want to study. And an example of that would be math and science courses are important for science, for engineering, and so on in those fields. So what we would do, we would look at the overall grade and see what that is, overall cumulative average. And then we would look at certain key courses if the applicant says, I want to study computer science, or I want to study physics, or I want to study some engineering major. We would look obviously at the math grades and at the science grades. Similarly, for other disciplines, we look at the courses that are pertinent to that from their background as well. And I guess the final slide there, Sophia, is simply me thanking you for allowing me to present to you. And I'm now going to turn it over to Emily, and I will be back for question and answer.
Yes, and I would like to introduce Emily because she has fantastic experience. She is ESL Faculty Foundation Year Coordinator at the University of Texas at Austin, but she worked in university administration at Northwestern University, and she has taught English to international students at New York University and in Hunter College. So she knows everything, how to conquer the admission team using your essays. So please listen to her very attentively and do your marks, because this is your free webinar that could cost, I don't know how many, $1 million, I believe. So Emily, please, yes, start. Dennis, could you please give us the rights?
Oh, I think I have it here.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you, Sophia. That was a lot of pressure. But I do, I do teach writing courses for students, international students at UT Austin who are preparing for university admission and some students who are preparing for graduate school as well. But like Robert, I'm going to focus on undergraduate admissions. The essay that you write for undergraduate admissions is quite different than what you might be asked to write if you're applying to a master's or PhD program. So the advice that I'm going to give you today is really focused on the undergraduate essay. So as Robert said, when you're applying for admission, whether it's to UT Austin or any other university in the US, and we have many excellent universities, right? Some of them are highly selective, like UT Austin, and as Robert mentioned, those Ivy League schools and schools like UCLA, UC Berkeley, but there are lots of schools that are excellent that are, accept a larger percentage of applicants. So there's a full range out there, but most colleges consider, and when I say colleges, I mean universities, they consider various factors for admission, and this might be different than universities in other countries. So yes, they're looking at your grades, your grade point average, maybe your class rank. Do you have the best grades in your graduating class? Are you in the top 5% or top 10%? They're looking at the courses that your high school offered. What kind of curriculum did you take? If your high school offered very difficult, math classes or easy math classes, did you choose to take, or were you placed into the more difficult classes that were available? Test scores, letters of recommendation from your high school teachers or other people who can talk about your performance and your ability. Maybe your extracurricular activities. Do you play sports? Do you play a musical instrument? Leadership? Something called Fit to Major, and I think Robert talked about this a little bit. This is especially important, I believe, at UT Austin. If the things that you've done in high school have specifically prepared you for the subject that you plan to major in. This is quite different at some universities where you're not admitted to a specific major. This will vary from college to college. Essays and demonstrated interest may also be important at some universities. Have you attended their webinars? Have you either visited the university in person or done a virtual visit remotely? So as you can see, there are many factors that go into the admissions process, and essays are just one of them, right? Most universities have a holistic process. And I want to share a quote with you that's really important. Colleges don't admit individual students. So when they're admitting you, they're not just thinking about you, they're thinking about the whole picture of all the students that they're admitting, right? And they need students to major in all the different areas in their university. They need students who can play every instrument in the university orchestra. They need students who can be on every sports team. So, you may be very well qualified for a university, but they may have 200 students who are very well qualified, and they have to, admit just one for that spot. So they're looking for a diverse group of students to fill all the different roles in their incoming class of students. So I just want you to remember that. And, if it's really important that you don't get your heart set on one particular university, that you apply to various universities and understand if you do or don't get admitted to any one particular university, that it's not a rejection of you, right? We have so many applicants for these spots, and we have to have a diverse and balanced class of students. So having said that, I'm going to focus on the essay today. The essay for undergraduate admissions is really super different than the essay that you might be writing for the essay, for the TOEFL or the IELTS exam. On the TOEFL or IELTS exam, you're trying to show off your English language skills, and you're trying to show off your academic writing abilities. That is very different from your admissions essay. Your admissions essay is not really an academic essay or an academic paper. It's a personal narrative. You're writing a story about your life, typically. The essay is all about who you are, and what who's the person behind the test scores and the grades. In your essay, you have a chance to show that you are unique. How are you different from all those other applicants who are applying for this spot? This is why it's really important that your undergraduate admissions essay is unique. So it's written by you. It's not a copy of an essay that anyone else could write. And I want to strongly discourage you from using ChatGPT for your undergraduate essay. ChatGPT is awesome. It's wonderful, but it's going to produce writing that's very generic. It's writing that looks like lots of other people's writing. And we want to see your unique personality in your essay. And that can only come from you. So the nice thing about the essay is it's the one part of the application that you have total control over. You cannot go back to last year and the year before and change your grades. You can study very hard for the TOEFL, but ultimately you don't get to pick your score, right? But the essay is all you, so you can do it. What do the admissions committee members want to know? They want to know some things about you. They want to know what motivates you. What are you passionate about in life? What are you excited about learning and doing when you're in college and after you graduate? They want to see signs that you're going to be successful, that when you come to their college, you're going to do well in your courses, that you're going to do well academically and also in the things that you participate in outside the classroom. Universities in the US are not just concerned about academics. We care about all of the other extracurricular things that are going on, the student organizations, as I said before, the musical ensembles and the sports teams, and they want to know how you're going to do on campus. Are you going to be successful? And after you graduate, are you going to be successful? They want the students who graduate from their universities to go on and do great things. So they want to see the signs that you have potential to do great things in college and after college. And finally, every university is looking for something a little different, right? They want students who are going to fit into this campus culture. UT is a huge university. I don't know the exact number of students, but it's, I don't know, 30,000, 40,000. It's a huge campus. So if you're
About
the kind
52 or 53,000.
53,000 people. So, so that's not a good fit for everyone, right? Some people will do much better in a smaller college, a smaller university where they get to know everyone really, really well. They might get lost on a big campus. So they want to know that you're going to be a good fit for the culture of this campus, the community, the things that this university is known for. Most universities in the US, they don't have their own specific essay requirements. They use what's called the Common Application. So until recently, the University of Texas was a little bit different, but they also now use the Common Application. So you can visit that website and see the instructions for the essay. So you'll write one essay that will, if you apply to 10 universities, that same essay will be sent to various universities often. Oops, out of order here. So the Common App provides prompts, topics. These are the topics now. You can see that there are 6. There might be one more, a 7th topic, and you get to choose one of them and write an essay in response to the topic that you choose. And my advice to you now is to take some time and read through those Common Application prompts. Look at them, think about which one reminds you of a story about yourself that would fit this topic and this prompt, and also show a little bit about who you are and what your strengths are. I recommend to my students to do 2 things with those prompts. First, to take that big prompt and break it down. So if you look at this one here, I'm going to read it. The lessons we take from obstacles we encounter can be fundamental to later success. Ooh. Recount a time when you faced a challenge, setback, or failure. How did it affect you? And what did you learn from the experience? That's a lot. They've just asked you to do a lot of different things here. The first sentence is important, background. We learn lessons from the obstacles that we encounter, but it's not really what it's asking you to do. It's asking you to do 3 things. Recount a time when you faced a challenge, setback, or failure. So think back in your life about a challenge that you faced, or when you were, trying to accomplish something and you you had a setback, or maybe you even failed. Why? Why, if you're trying to prove that you're going to be successful, why are you going to talk about failure? You know, the university wants to see that you're the kind of person who doesn't fail once and then quit, right? You're going to have times when you fall on your face. They want to see that you can get back up again and keep trying. And that you've developed learned lessons from every experience in your life, good or bad. So how did it affect you? And what did you learn? Okay, so if you're reading through those common application prompts, really take your time and break down how many different things are they asking you to do? What are those questions that they're asking? And why are they asking you those questions? The next thing I would do is really think about those words and what they mean. Here's another common application prompt. Some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful, they believe their application would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, then please share your story. So you don't have to write about all 4 of those things. It's background, identity, interest, or talent. Choose one. And you might choose one that is not going to be obvious to the admissions committee from the rest of your application. Maybe if they just look at your high school grades and your letters of recommendation, maybe they won't learn some key piece of information about you that makes you special. So background could be many things. I had a student that he's now a 3rd-year student at UT Austin. I helped him with his application essay, and he wrote about growing up in his country and helping herd sheep on his father's farm. And this was a very interesting background. He was going to write about his computer science club and his planting trees. And I said, there are lots of students who plant trees, but not very many students work as a shepherd herding the sheep. This is something really unique and interesting. It's going to catch people's attention. So that's interesting about his background. Your identity. This could be your nationality, or your religion, or anything about who you are that makes you maybe a little different from some of the other people that are applying to the university. Your interests. What are your hobbies? What are you passionate about? Or your talent. What are you really good at? And the last part of this prompt is really important, right? Share your story. You're going to tell a story. So my advice number 1 is spend some time looking over those common application prompts and really thinking about them. Another piece of advice is take your time choosing a topic. Choose a topic that you really want to write about. If it's boring to you, your essay is going to be boring. If the subject doesn't matter to you, it's not going to matter to the reader. Write about what keeps you up at night. In other words, something that you're obsessed with, something that you're passionate about. That passion is going to come through in your essay. The topic, sometimes the topics that are most successful are really unexpected. I'm going to share an example with you in a moment. It's something that needs to be meaningful to you. It doesn't matter if it seems small. Almost anything can lead to a good essay topic if it matters to you. It says something about who you are, and you have something to say about it. If you start to write and you write 3 sentences and there's no more to say, it's probably not a good topic. I think it's also a nice idea to look at example essays, model essays. You don't want to look at them to copy them, but look at a few different model essays just to see how different people approach the college essay. I'm going to share one with you. This essay, the title is String Theory, and I got this essay from a university website, Johns Hopkins University, another really great university here in the US, highly selective college. They every year they share some successful application essays. And they share the essay, and then they share a little paragraph with the admissions committee's comments on what they liked about this essay and why they admitted this student. So I'm going to share that one with you. Give me just a moment. String theory. All I know is her first name, Joanna. Do I have time for this? I think I do. I'm going to go ahead and read it. It's pretty short. If string theory is really true, then the entire world is made up of strings, and I cannot tie a single one. I like this. This has got me interested, right? What do you mean you can't tie a string? What are you talking about? We can all tie a string. This past summer, I applied for my very first job at a small, busy bakery and cafe in my neighborhood. I knew that if I were hired there, I would learn how to use a cash register, prepare sandwiches, and take cake orders. I imagined that my biggest struggle would be catering to demanding New Yorkers, but I never thought that it would be the benign act of tying a box that would become both my biggest obstacle and greatest teacher. I am intrigued. I am interested. I want to read more. If I'm on the admissions committee, I am excited. This is going to be fun to read. And notice that it's personal. It's I, right? She is telling us a story about herself. On my first day of work in late August, one of the bakery's employees hastily explained the procedure. It seemed simple. Wrap the string around your hand, then wrap it 3 times around the box, both ways, and knot it. I recited the anthem in my head 3 times, turn it, 3 times, knot, until it became my mantra. After observing multiple employees, it was clear that anyone tying the box could complete it in a matter of seconds. For weeks, I labored endlessly, only to watch the strong and small pieces of my pride unravel each time I tried. As I rushed to discreetly shove half-tied cake boxes into plastic bags, I could not help but wonder what was wrong with me. Okay, this is a failure, right? I've learned Mozart arias, memorized the functional groups in organic chemistry, and calculated the antiderivatives of functions that I will probably never use in real life, all with a modest amount of energy. For some reason, though, after a month's effort, tying string around a cake box still left me in a quandary. So this is what we call a humble brag. She's talking about her failure, but she's also sneaking in some of her talents, right? As the weeks progressed, my skills slowly began to improve. Of course, there were days when I just wanted to throw all the string in the trash and use Scotch tape. This sense of defeat was neither welcome nor wanted, but remarks like, "Oh, you must be new," from snarky customers catapulted my determination to greater heights. It should be more difficult to develop an internal pulse and sense of legato in a piece of music than it is to find the necessary rhythm required to tie a box. But this seemingly trivial task has clearly proven not to be trivial at all. The difficulties I encountered trying to keep a single knot intact are proof of this. The lack of cooperation between my coordination and my understanding left me frazzled. But the satisfaction I felt when I successfully tied my first box was almost as great as any I had felt before. I'm going to skip ahead in the interest of time to the conclusion. I'm beginning to realize that I should not be ashamed if it takes me longer to learn. I persist and I continue to tie boxes every weekend at work. Even though I occasionally backslide into feelings of exasperation, I always rewrap the string and start over because I've learned that the most gratifying victories come from tenacity. If the universe is really comprised of strings, I am confident that I will be able to tie them together, even if I do have to keep my fingers crossed that the knots hold up. And this is what the admissions committee says about this essay. This student's voice definitely came through. Very unique voice. She is funny, right? If you're not funny, don't try to write a funny essay, right? But she's got a funny voice. It's her own personal voice. I don't think anybody else could have written this essay. She cleverly incorporated 2 types of string. So this was kind of a unique twist, right? The string of string theory and the string of the boxes. And she really showed her ability to overcome a challenge, as well as I said, her sense of humor. She told us a lot about her She loves music. She loves science. She isn't just working on her academics. She's dedicated to this part-time job. She takes it seriously and she puts things in perspective. She doesn't get deeply upset about things that are not significant, right? She has a sense of perspective. Maybe the actual topic is narrow, really small, tying string around a box of cake, but it really let us get to know her and who she is. I want to show you a few more things here, a few more tips. This is classic tip from writing teachers. You may have heard this before. We always tell our students to show and don't tell. So don't just say, I am hardworking. I face challenges and I overcome them. I never give up, right? You've got to show us that in the story that you tell. Think about this, right? The bakery job was harder than it looked. How does she show this? She tells us about the boxes and the customer comments that got under her skin. She's smart and multi-talented. Things usually come easy to her. She shows us this when she talks about, music and physics, right? And she shows us that she learned to persevere through this job. So think about, how are you going to demonstrate these qualities about yourself in your essay? Okay, I'm going a little bit over time. I'm going to say just a couple more quick things. Take your time writing this essay. Take your time to think about the topic, to brainstorm, to talk about all your different ideas. Give yourself time to write a draft, one that's really messy and full of grammar mistakes and way too long, and then take a break and come back to it a little bit later and revise it and cut things and rearrange things, and then show it to a few different people, show it to trusted friends. Parents sometimes are tough. They know you too well. But maybe parents, maybe teachers in school, right? Listen to different people's feedback, but ultimately that writing belongs to you. So you have to make your own choices. It has to be your voice, not anybody else's voice. And then make sure you edit. We don't want to have easy to fix grammar mistakes. You can use, spell check, grammar check on your word processor or Microsoft Word. I think Grammarly is okay. Again, I would not use ChatGPT. They're going to give you weird suggestions that are not your voice. But you can correct spelling and grammar and then submit. Make sure that you take time to think. Don't just rush into that process. Think about these questions. Really, really think about them, brainstorm. An activity that I like to do with my students is this. Write down, qualities about yourself that you want people to know about you. I'm creative, I'm funny, I'm perseverant, I'm, what are these qualities about yourself? Or if you're not sure about what your best qualities are, talk to your people in your family or your close friends and say, what do you think are my best qualities? What are the things that you think will make me succeed? And then for each of those, ask yourself, how did I get that way? What experiences in my life helped me develop that quality? And then just write about those experiences, see what stories come up. I just want to mention two more things, 1 minute each. First, the main essay is important, but a lot of universities will also give you some short answer questions. And these are the ones where you really have to write something different for each university. UT requires the main essay from the Common Application, and then some short answers where you will write about things like why you're interested in your major. What is it specifically about UT Austin, the University of Texas at Austin, that you like? How are you going to change the world after you graduate? So each university will have different short answers, or many universities will have different short answers that help you to show them a little bit more about why you're a good fit for this particular university. So unfortunately, it's not just one essay. It's probably one essay plus a bunch of shorter answers. The last thing I want to say is there are lots of good resources out there, and there are 3 in particular that I recommend. There are lots of books and college admissions counselors that charge you money. There's, one person here, sorry, let me bring that back up. There's one One person who has a couple of popular books, and he also has a website where he shares a lot of his advice for free and lots of examples. And my students have found it very helpful. His name is College Essay Guy. It's kind of a silly name, but if you do a Google search for College Essay Guy, you'll see his website. There's an organization called the College Board. They publish the SAT, or they own the SAT and AP exams. They have some great advice for college essays. And then if you're looking for sample essays, I recommend going to specific university websites or YouTube channels. Johns Hopkins University and Harvard University every year share a bunch of successful examples. You can Google Harvard's, essays and Harvard college essays and find those. I'll share these slides with Sophia after this presentation, and she can share with you. But these are some resources that I recommend without hesitation. And that is all I'm going to say.
Perfect.
Wow, Emily, that was fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you
Sophia,
very
could I
much.
add a few more things that I should have talked about earlier? And it was Emily's presentation that kind of prompted me to remember these things. It won't take long. First of all, Emily said something about what you do control. You don't control the grades you already made. You don't control the test score you already took, but you do control the essay. Another thing that applicants do control is when they apply, the deadline date, the last date by which they must get in all of their documents and their application, sometimes application fees. You control that. So be sure and not be late when you submit the things. If you have to take a test like TOEFL or IELTS, go ahead and do that. Plan to take that, because what happens at UT Austin is that if we get the test score and there's no application, it creates not an application, but it creates a file, a record, and the application comes in and matches up with that score. So don't be late. Be on time with your submission of your application. Secondly, and Emily mentioned this as well, don't just think of one school. A lot of people will recommend that applicants plan on at least 3 schools. The one that you really, really, really want to go to, even if it is highly selective, like UT Austin. Secondly, the one that you can get into, that all your friends have told you can get into, you've read about it online, you know that you can probably get admitted, your grades are good enough to get admitted to that school for sure. And thirdly, one that's almost a UT Austin or almost a Princeton or almost a Harvard, that's still pretty good, and you may or may not be admitted to it. Those are the 3 that you should probably apply to. And when you do an essay, if you do the same essay for each of the schools, which is perfectly fine, be sure and change the name. You may think I'm telling a joke here. I'm not. I have read essays before where the individual said, and so I think that for all those reasons I've just written about, I will make a great addition to Texas A&M University, and it was being sent to us. So be sure and change the name. The other thing is that you need to think about the climate. Russians are used to very cold weather, so you won't have much trouble in Michigan or at Princeton or Harvard or any of the schools in the East. But maybe Texas is pretty hot. Maybe Arizona is a little too hot, and so on. Indian students will apply to universities without thinking that it gets quite cold in Michigan, and they're not used to cold. So think about those things as well. Also, do your research. Know as much as you can about the institutions or institutions, plural, that you are going to apply to, so that you know a little bit about them. You certainly know their deadlines. Do they have the major that I want to study? And it'll help you in your essay if you can talk about what that school is offering that you think is important to you. Again, another aspect that's common in admissions that's not generally known by students, international students, and that is you need to know whether the school or schools to which you are applying, whether they do the credential analysis in-house, like we do at UT Austin. We do all of it in-house, or do they have a third-party company do it for them? For example, NYU, Emily mentioned New York University. NYU's Tandon School of Engineering totally outsources all of the credentials analysis to a private company while they use their admissions people to go recruit. So check to see, do I have an extra step in the application process that includes an outside credential evaluation? And if they go on our site, they'll see, no, there is no extra step. It's all done right here. We know, while I don't read Russian, I can read a little, and I can certainly read documents, academic documents in other languages, a number of other languages. And so we teach our people that, and so we do all of the analysis here. So if I get a Russian attestat, I'm going to be able to look at it and make a determination of what the grades are and so forth. And then I guess really that's all I have to add to it. So now, Sophie, it's up to you if you want to open up to questions, whatever you want to do.
Yes, guys, please, you can write your questions in the chat box. I see one question regarding the essay. Can I write and submit only one essay on Common App? But I believe Emily has already answered that no. If
I think you can do separate essays. Most students do one general essay on Common App. I think you can submit several and say, I want to send this essay to this university and this one to another through the Common App as well.
I believe that's correct. Yes.
Okay. And one question from me, how can we read the mission of the university from the university website? Because we need to show that we are a good fit to the university, and usually all admission officers tell us that we need to read the mission of the university, but it's so difficult to read it. When can we do this?
I would suggest, and Emily, please add your answer as well. But generally speaking, off the main home page will be a navigation bar at the top, and there should be an either about us or an actual statement that says mission. And you can click on that, and generally it will tell you. A lot of institutions have very broad mission statements, so it may or may not be helpful. Sometimes it's easier to go to a more specific site, like your prospective major. For example, go to the electrical engineering department website and see what they say about themselves. How long has the department been in existence? Because, you know, UT Austin was founded in 1883, and maybe electrical engineering didn't come along until the turn of the century, whatever. Read about that, and that will help you a lot determining what it is that they're about and what they're looking for in students.
And do you have any kind of table where you put ticks that student is good enough for GPA, for TOEFL, for essay,
I see.
and then you calculate all this?
Yeah, successful candidate. I have seen some websites. For example, I remember checking the Texas A&M website, and they indeed gave percentage numbers of past admission classes and successful candidates. Often it's done more at the graduate level than it is at the undergraduate level, but UT Austin does not do that because our admission process is so selective and very holistic with so many factors that are involved. And Emily, I think, highlighted one of the facts that the essay, which she spent a good deal of time on, which was extremely important, nevertheless is only one factor among many that admissions officers are going to look at. There are those in the field in our business that say the grades are important, the test score is important, the essay is going to be important, really to help determine whether, if you can accept 3 more, will this person be one of those 3? That's not always true, but that can sometimes be the case when you're talking about highly selective institutions, which really must look hard at a number of applicants and only choose a small subset, what will often happen is they'll say, here are 2 good students and I can't have them both. I've got to pick one. And that essay will do a lot to determine who gets picked.
I see. So we have a question regarding essays. Do essays for graduate application differ much from the ones for undergraduate applications?
Oh, Emily handled that one.
Yeah, I can talk about that one. So while the undergraduate essay is a personal narrative where you're telling a story from your life that may or may not be related specifically to academics, for graduate students, they typically write something, not exactly even an essay, something called a statement of purpose. And this is much more concrete and specific about your purpose for getting this graduate degree and what kind of research you want to do. It's very it's typically pretty technical. So you're writing about, you know, what you studied as an undergraduate, any kind of research that you've done, and what you plan to research in your graduate program. And what your career goals are when you finish. So it's much more future focused. It's very specific to your field, your discipline. A lot of students make a faculty connection at the university. They've identified specific professors at the university that they'd like to work with on their research if admitted. And they may even mention those professors in their statement of purpose. But you're really it's a very different kind of document than the undergraduate essay. And so if you're getting ready to apply for graduate school, I suggest searching for information about the statement of purpose, because it is quite different. I'm going to go ahead and answer the next question. I can see it here on the chat. Someone asked me, and I forgot to mention this in my slides, how many words are best to write in a Common App essay for undergrads? The word limit is 650. You don't have to fill that, but you know, close to it is typical. 500, 600 words is typical.
Alihan is asking about scholarship. Can international students get scholarship in the University of Texas at Austin?
Sure, that's a good question. The answer to that is no and yes. Let me explain. At the undergraduate level, and that's really our audience here today, the possibilities of scholarship monies and is simply largely not there. Most of the scholarships that the University of Texas gives out at the undergraduate level are designed for U.S. students, particularly subsets of U.S. domestic students and so forth. Of course, international students also cannot get federal grants and loans. So what I guess I'm saying is at the undergraduate level, there's generally not much in the way of financial support that international students can expect. At the graduate level, it's an entirely different story. Graduate fellowships, jobs as teaching assistants, assistant instructors, and so forth. Often this carries with it at a public institution like ours, where their tuition is different for domestic students, or I'm sorry, for Texas resident students, and more for out-of-state U.S. students and international. They're the same. So a Californian would pay the same thing at UT Austin that a Russian student would pay. But they can that job that they get will not only give them a salary, some money, they would also knock their tuition down to the same level as a Texas resident student. So there are a number of things that can help. But again, these are at the graduate level. So at the undergraduate level, to the questioner today, generally not going to be able to find much. Now, there could be something in country, in Russia, for students going abroad to study that Russian firms or government offices may disburse in order to enhance the ability of returning students. But in the United States and at the University of Texas specifically, there's not going to be anything available for the undergraduate international.
One more question regarding schools. So the same as in the US, in Russia, we have very strong schools where it is pretty difficult to study and your grades could be not that good. You can have C plus or B minus, but of course we do have schools that are pretty easier to study. They have lower requirements, but you can receive only A and A stars. So what do you recommend? Because usually American universities, they don't know anything about Russian schools. So they are interested in transcript. And in the transcript, there is no information about the difficulties of the schools. So what should we choose? Should we go to the schools where we can receive better marks, but that is not that high-ranked school in Russia, or should we go to a difficult one?
This is a very good question, Sophia. Generally speaking, selective institutions like the University of Texas at Austin are going to look for students coming from schools that they consider to be good schools. And of course, admissions officers all across the country, in the United States, know about U.S. high schools, which are the good ones, which are not, publics versus privates, very good publics. And of course, most of the privates are pretty good. Now, in terms of other countries, it's an interesting question. In the case of Russia, naturally, we would be looking for an academic track with decent grades in that. We may not know whether this particular high school is as good as that particular high school, but we do know general things, like we know, for example, that the Russian student can leave at 9th grade and with the junior diploma and go to an училище or technicum, and where it's going to be more vocational and get a credential from there and a qualification. But that may not be what a University of Texas or a UCLA or a Stanford would be looking for. They would be looking for the traditional academic high school graduate, and did they do well there, knowing that's probably a pretty good school. And in fact, if the grades are a little bit lower, there's a reason for it, because it is such a high quality school. Whereas the other, they probably say, yeah, okay, it's all 5. So we figured that would be the case. And so, so may not pick that person, may pick this person over here who has just a 4 or even a very high 3 sometimes, because we know that they've gone to a difficult school, competitive school.
Okay, thank you. So students, any questions? Dennis, have you?
Yeah, I just want to ask about essay also. Should you mention somehow that you need a financial aid or you need a scholarship in essay if university get opportunity to students to have this scholarship?
Let me just say again, at the undergraduate level, that's probably not going to be the case. And it's not just true of UT Austin, by the way. That's something I neglected to say when I answered the question earlier. And that is that it's pretty universal across the United States. So not just UT Austin, but Stanford or Notre Dame or any of those schools. And that's perhaps another thing that international applicants may want to look at. Faith-based schools may or may not be something that are attractive to the international applicant. And so that's where they do their homework again to see what kind of school this is. And I think Sophie mentioned it earlier, this comes under the mission as well. That's where if it's a faith-based school, like a Notre Dame, like a SMU, like a TCU, Texas Christian University, Southern Methodist University, that's where you start to see a little bit of that involved in the mission. And so that may not be a school you want to go to. But let's go back to your question. Again, at the undergraduate level, for students coming in from high schools around the world, there is very little in the way of financial support that they can expect. Competitive scholarships, certainly no grants or loans, those sorts of things. Again, I would say it's very possible that in the country where the student is applying from, there may be something available designed to help Russian students, let's use Russia as an example, help Russian students get a quality education abroad. And then when they return, they're able to contribute to Russian society and infrastructure in important ways. And that company in Russia may say, let's spend some money this year on sending some students to school in the United States, because when they come back, they're going to be well trained in computer science or management or something like that.
Mhm.
Can I add a little bit to this conversation? Yeah, great. So typically, right, there's the admissions office and then there's the financial aid office, right? And you can visit financial aid office websites at different universities and see if there are any scholarships that are available to international students. There may be a few, right? At some public universities, our mission is to educate here at UT the students of Texas, right? And that's our primary mission. I believe so. Like, of course, we want talented students from all over the world to come here, but financial aid is typically reserved mostly for state residents. At some private universities, there's less of that, and they may have some scholarships that are available. So I would do a search. Any university you're interested in, search their website, and there'll be information there. Are there any scholarships available? I just want to give you a word of caution. So in the chat, someone asked, or actually, I believe it was Alex who asked, should I mention this in my essay? I think it would be a very bad idea to mention it in an essay if you're using that essay for various universities. Universities, some of them are what's called need blind, and they don't pay attention to your financial situation when they decide whether or not to admit you. At some universities, announcing that you need financial aid can actually hurt your chances of admission. It's a sad fact. But they want students who can afford to pay. They have financial aid available for some talented students, but saying right away, I need money is not going to help you with your undergrad admissions. After you're admitted. For graduate students, I think it's a very different situation. If you are a good candidate and a good match for this university and this department, and they want you, there are lots of sources of funding available. So that's all I'm going to say.
Emily, thanks for that. I especially appreciate the sharing the dichotomy between private and public. That's really important. You're right. Private schools tend to do a bit more, can do a bit more than what public institutions are. Because you're right, our mission is to educate the students of the state of Texas. However, some schools, like the University of Texas, have long-standing historical ties to international education, going all the way back to 1940 with Dr. Joe Neal, who started the international office where you are now, called Texas Global. Just really and truly was dedicated to admitting international students. Were there scholarships or and other funds available? Maybe sometimes, maybe not. But a lot of institutions are like us and have the dedication to maintaining a strong international focus. It comes through in our admissions process because we're severely constrained by something called the top 10% rule. That means that we have to admit the top 10% of the graduating high school class in Texas high schools has the right to go to the state school, the public school university of their choice. And of course, a lot of them want to come here. And what we've done is to maintain enough of a leeway that enable us to choose the remaining portion of our incoming freshman class, and we always leave some room for that to be international. So that's a long-standing thing. And you're right about mentioning financial aid in the essay. We are in fact need blind here because we're not interested in that. Number one. Number two, we don't even issue the I-20s here. And something that international students need to know is in order to come here, you have to get an F1 student visa. In order to get that, you have to have an I-20 from the admitting institution. We don't issue I-20s. We issue admission letters, but then we inform Texas Global, this person's admitted, they need an I-20. So we don't even want to see the financial aid letters that immigration requires. We just send it automatically to Texas Global. I mean, all we're interested in test scores, grades, school you came from, all the other things we've talked about here this morning or today. I know it's not morning there.
Okay, thank you. Arevik, you may ask the question. So I see.
Hello. I have a question regarding graduate students, actually, because I'm interested in applying master's degree. And actually, I'm curious how much GPA matters in terms of getting aid.
This is an interesting question. It's difficult. First of all, we have over 130 graduate programs on campus, and they're all different. We say in our office, because we're the first point of contact for you, the applicant, we generally will say you need about a 3.0, a B average, a 4 on a 5-point scale in Russia to be actively considered for possible admission. Then, of course, if a GRE is required, there's a test score that generally needs to be about 1,000 or so. But depending on the program, it may differ slightly from that. Sometimes the little bit lower grade average can be compensated by other factors, such as the statement of goals and purposes, such as a test score like the GRE, the TOEFL, and so on, that can compensate. Let me use my own example, although it was a long time ago. When I entered into graduate school, my overall grade point average was not even a 3.0. It was a 2.8, which is a high C. And however, the courses that were all history, and which was much, and my GPA was not calculated on the fact that it was all history. But my GPA on history courses was more like a 3.2. So history did admit me, conditionally, I'll admit, but they did admit me, and I was able to go on and complete my master's degree. So sometimes grade averages can be compensated for other factors, but hopefully that grade average is not too low. What our office does is we will flag it. That means we will call attention to it to the graduate program, and we say this, if admitted, this will be conditional. And it's up to the program to decide, does it matter if that person has a 2.8 or something like that? The more competitive programs, the engineering programs, computer science, business for sure, MBA, they are all going to be very conscious of what the grade average is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Advar, yours next.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, I guess good day for you. So I have two questions. The first one is about internships. So what kind of role do they play in the admission process for graduate admission, not for the undergraduate?
Pretty strong role, I would say. But again, depending on the major. MBA obviously is going to be very interested in an internship that an undergraduate may have done. First of all, internships at the undergraduate level are not that prevalent, and they're not that frequently seen. So a graduate admissions committee is going to perk up and take notice of that. And I would suspect, of course, it'll be on the transcript, but I would certainly encourage including it, much as Emily was giving advice on those statements of goals and purposes, which is what that graduate applicant was submitting. Talk about that internship. I had an internship at, wherever, Aeroflot. I picked that simply because my son had an internship with American Airlines, and so that was an important thing, I think, when he was applying to law schools. So yeah, I think it's very worthwhile because it says something about you, even if you're not paid. And that's a big debate going on in the United States right now, being paid for internships, because so often these are not paid internships. But it does establish a couple of things: something beyond the academics, number one, and secondly, the ability to be part of a team, even though not being financially compensated, that demonstrates the ability to work in a certain kind of private environment, corporate environment, and that would make you more attractive. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And just to clarify, so let's imagine a situation that you don't have them, right? You don't have internships, because usually, as far as I know, American universities take a very holistic approach. So they definitely consider your circumstances, because of course, like if you're in the United States or in the Western world, you do have access to more opportunities, right? As a student. So what can compensate for this? What can compensate for the
Oh,
absence of the
I see. That's an interesting, maybe it was employment during your first degree studies, right? That was local. For example, when I didn't take out any grants or loans when I went to school, but in my day, the tuition was very much lower. But I did work in the grocery store because my parents couldn't afford to send me to university. So I worked in a grocery store and made money there and worked in the summer a large number of hours and so on. So that would have made me more attractive to, say, a business program at the graduate level. But even though I didn't have an internship, I was working, and that establishes several things: the work ethic, the ability to function in a retail environment, and especially customer service and all that kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's one thing that you could use. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just was going to chime in and say volunteer work, anything you did as a volunteer, also helpful, whether it's, tutoring younger students or I volunteered in a hospital when I was in high school, and this at the time I was a pre-med student, not an education student, but that kind of thing that I think is more accessible is also great.
Thank you, Emily, for that, because that I forget, because it's been a few years since I helped out on the domestic side, reading essays and scoring applicants for freshman admission. But one of the things, and holistic review is exactly what we were doing. We used a number of factors, and it was pretty complex. In fact, it was so complex that the University of Texas initially won a Supreme Court case using affirmative action because our process was so complicated and so many factors involved that the Supreme Court justices could not point to affirmative action as having an overbearing effect on the overall process. But one of the things we did was to look for volunteer work outside the classroom, involvement in everything from sports to the robotics club, all that kind of thing. And all those factors could produce a number on a scale that enabled the overall admission decision to veer in the applicant's favor because they were doing all these things outside the classroom.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I see. Thank you very much. And if I may, just one more question.
Sure.
Okay. So pick up your time. So let's imagine a situation that you already study at American University for your bachelor's degree, right? It can be a branch of an American university. I suppose this does play a role in your validity of your transcript, let's say, because like if it's an American university, I mean, they will already know how to adjust the scale of difficulty.
Oh, I see.
Right.
Yeah, and the answer to that is that depending on how admissions is done for international applicants, and as I indicated earlier in the talk, UT Austin, I'm just talking about UT Austin right now, we do it all in-house. And one of my jobs, because I've been here a long time, is to train new people on educational systems around the world so that when they finally get the application from someone from whatever country, they will have already had training with me to know about the schools, about the grading system, about the credentials and their levels and all of that, but particularly the grading system so that they know what that is. I also contribute to a database that ACRO, my professional association, owns, and our school, UT, subscribes to it, and I help keep the content up to date. So if we learn something new, if Russia decides to change its grading system, immediately we'll change it in the database. And that database is used by over 900 schools in the United States, as well as the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service, the organization that gives out the F1 and H-1B visas and all that kind of thing. So I guess my answer to your question is, good admissions offices will make sure their people fully understand the educational system of the country they're looking at. And if they don't, they have resources they can go to that will enable them to see what it is. For example, right now, India Russia has not changed anything, but India is changing completely its higher education structure so that it's going to be a real challenge for admissions officers going forward. So yes, good schools will have good people, well trained in various educational systems around the world. EDGE, the database I'm talking about, contains country entries, profiles on 232 countries in the world. So so if someone needs to know about a small tiny country, they can go in there and find it.
Thank you.
Thank you for answering.
Dear
those
guys,
questions.
we need to say thank you to Emily because she needs to go to another event. So that's why we need to say thank you and bye-bye. Hope to see you again in another meeting. Yes.
Thanks so much,
thank-
Emily.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Sophia. This was great. And if any of you end up at the University of Texas in the future, please come visit me at Texas Global and say hi in person.
Again, thanks,
Thanks,
Emily, for
Sophia.
volunteering.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Robert, we do have several more questions, and
Okay.
one question is about strategy. Is it possible to apply to easily reached major instead of very difficult one? For example, is it possible to go to Bachelor of Arts in History instead of Computer Science, and after that transfer to Computer Science when you are already enrolled into the university?
Yeah. Very good question. And let me explain. And the answer to that is it depends on the school, obviously. But at UT Austin, that's not easy to do because, for example, if there is a limitation on the number of students admitted into business, admitted into engineering, admitted into computer science, then if a student comes into something else, for example, they come into economics, right? Which is in a whole different college or faculty, as you would call it, faculty than business. Going from economics to business is not easy because what business has done is control internal transfers as much as external transfers coming in. So they're very much aware that this might be something someone would possibly do. They can't get into business as a first year student. So trying to come in as a second year student, there's going to be a very limited number of those, and there'll be a new set of requirements. For example, in addition to all the other things that they looked at the applicant about regarding their outside studies, they're also now going to be seeing how are they doing at UT Austin in very basic general first year courses. So I think most schools are very much aware that students might do that. And so they're very careful to be just as competitive internally as they are externally.
I see. And for example, if they choose undeclared major, is it the same?
If they choose what? I'm sorry.
Undeclared or undefined major?
Good. Yeah, good question. And the answer to that is no. That's very closely watched as well. They know that the student is going to declare a major at some point. And so what will happen is that business, for example, or computer science is going to be is going to set a limit on the number of internal transfers from undeclared or any other major as severely as they will for incoming first year students from high schools. So that's generally not something that's done. And in fact, our office will often say to an international applicant, we don't admit to undeclared majors. You need to declare a major because we have to put it on your I-20 to say they're going to study this. And if you have undeclared and you go in to have your consular interview and you have an I-20 that says undeclared, that consular official may well deny that visa.
Yeah, thank you. So we have several questions in our chat. One question is from Alexandra. I believe this is regarding PhD. When, where, and with whom can I discuss the terms of a scholarship and salary? At what step of admission? And what are the rules of good form of mutual benefit is not found, or a more attractive alternative has appeared?
Basically, that the need for the either scholarship or salary or position, that needs to be determined very early on. That needs to be determined at the time of application. For example, there are, at UT this is true, and at other schools I'm sure it's true as well, there are often two deadlines. One is early. For fall term, it would probably be February 1st, okay? And that is the deadline for anyone applying to that graduate program, master's or PhD, doesn't matter, who wants some form of departmental assistance. And that, again, that can range from a graduate fellowship that the dean's office gives, or it could be specific monies that the program can give out, and especially positions as a teaching assistant. Those are all controlled in the program offices, the department offices. And so anyone that wants that money, any form of that money, needs to apply early, because they want to pick those people early on and know who they are. The rest of the people who don't need any money or don't want any money, they're free to continue applying right up to probably April 1st, May 1st, something like that, because they're simply going to be in the classroom. They're not going to be needing money to come out of the departmental budget. So again, the departments want to know early who it's going to be. Another form that our questioner may not have thought about, or may have thought about, but didn't actually say in the question, is in addition to a teaching assistant role where you actually teach undergraduate students history or computer science or economics or whatever, and even though you don't have your doctorate yet, because you're a graduate student working on those degrees, they, in addition to those roles, which we have all over the United States, there are also the possibilities of working in a lab. I think Emily mentioned this when she talked about the statement of goals and purposes. Graduate students, excuse me, can work for a professor in that program who has grant money from the U.S. government, the U.S. military, the U.S. who knows where it came from, but our National Science Foundation. That professor may be working on this grant contract, and he needs students to work in the labs to help further the goals of that contract. So that's another possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And that information is found out by going to the website, clicking on the program, and looking to see what kinds of research is going on, because that research is probably backed by a grant. Institutions like UT Austin that are so-called Tier 1 research institutes, they're the ones that get the larger share of government contract research money, okay? And even private corporation money as well. But so the opportunities are more there. Like, for example, there's less opportunity perhaps in history than there would be in mechanical engineering or electrical engineering or something like, or computer science, you know.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So it means that all this information, scholarship, salary, should be discussed with the professor.
Absolutely. Start in the program office by the staff members, and just say, I'm interested in scholarship or other financial means, and that person will say, well, then you need to talk to Dr. So-and-so, who is doing research for the National Science Foundation, and I think you would be, he or she is looking for graduate students to work with them on a salary basis in order to further their contract or the whatever they're trying to achieve with that contract.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Alexander, have we answered your question or not? Please write. One more question from Olga. What is the percentage of international students in your university? I believe you had this information.
No, not entirely.
Yeah, okay.
The number is about 10%.
10%.
So maybe 5,300, something like that. I haven't seen the fall 23 numbers, but historically we have been in the 8 to 10% range of all students. knowing, of course, that we're a public institution, which means a lot of our student body is going to be Texas residents and others. Nevertheless, we have probably historically, I know when I first started working here, we were always in the top 10 of the United States universities with the most international students. We have dropped a little bit as others. It's not so much that we're getting fewer, it's just that more universities are getting more. And so we dropped down in the rankings a little bit in terms of higher percentage, but it hovers, Olga, around 8 to 10% of the entire population. I don't know how that breaks down into grad versus undergrad. I'm talking overall, okay?
Is it correlated with financial aid? I mean, a percentage of international students?
No.
Yes?
No, I don't think so. I think part of the problem in the United States overall right now is that tuition has been going up almost precipitously. And I know that just maybe 10 years ago or so, it was really a very good deal, the tuition cost at University of Texas, Austin. Now, like all the rest, let me go back a little bit, Sophia. Historically, in the United States, private schools charged much more than public schools. Public schools varied in the amount that they charged. A Michigan could charge a lot, and a UT Austin maybe not near as much. But this is beginning to change so that the cost of higher education in public universities is getting higher. It is still cheaper. And so I would suggest to international applicants anywhere that if you are interested in studying in the United States, think public universities first. If money is a factor, think public universities first because you're going to pay less at a public university. And then you just kind of look. And a lot of them have, for example, UT Austin has a very good page. The Texas Global, Emily's office, has a very good web page off their website that talks about the costs of what it costs as an undergraduate international student at UT Austin.
Olga, have we answered your question? Please write. So any other questions, guys? You're free to ask about all. So just, yes, thank you. Okay, perfect. Okay, do we have any other questions? No other questions?
Wow. Well, that's about right. You predicted that we'd be here about an hour and a half, and that's right on the money. You did good.
Yes. Will there be any way in the future to connect with you? Akbar Gafurov.
Did you include my email address?
No.
Oh, sorry.
But I can send.
I will send it to you. I will send it to you.
Yes, I can send the email
and you
address.
feel free to share it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much.
As soon as we get off, I'll do it immediately.
Yes, thank you very much for your time. It was such a luck to have you today.
Well, thank you so much.
Guys, please say thank you. And yes, we can go. Yes, thank you very much. It was really
no, it's probably dinner time there.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thanks again for the invitation, and in future, if you need again, just contact me.
Perfect, I'll do.
All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
All
Have
right,
a
goodbye.
day, yes, and have a nice night, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.